I talk to a lot of people who have just been arrested for DUI. And for most people, this is their first time dealing with the criminal justice system. And the most common question that I'm asked is, hey, what's going to happen to me? What are the penalties associated? So today, I want to talk about the penalties associated with a first-time DUI. So the first thing to know is that DUI comes with a maximum jail penalty of 6 months. Now, assuming that the person has no criminal record, and also that there are no aggravating factors in the case, such as a high BAC, or having a child in the car when they're driving, or refusing a chemical test, or a reckless driving situation, the court will almost always impose probation in lieu of jail. In a DUI, the typical probation term is 5 years in San Diego. What is probation? Probation is basically a contract with the court. The court promises the defendant that they won't put them in jail, and the defendant promises the court that they'll abide by some reasonable conditions of probation for the probation period. In DUI, the typical probation terms are as follows. First thing is a fine. Fine is typically around $2,200. Now this fluctuates and it actually goes up every once in a while, but that's typically the fine right now. The next thing is the first conviction program. Now this is either a 3-month program or a 9-month program, and basically what it is it's an alcohol abuse education program. The next thing is the MAD Impact Panel. This is a 1-day, about a 3-hour session where defendants listen to the victims of DUI tell their stories. The next thing is what's called the standard alcohol conditions. While the defendant is on probation, they have to abide by these standard conditions. And what the standard conditions are is basically you can't drive with any alcohol in your blood at all. Even 0.01 would be a violation. And again, the legal limit is 0.08. So 0.01 is actually very low. And secondly, you have to submit to a chemical test with or without cause upon the request of a police officer. This means that if you're driving down the road and you're on DUI probation and you run a stop sign and you get pulled over, the police officer can run your license and determine whether or not you are on probation. And if you are, they can force you to take a chemical test, and you have to take that test with or without any reasonable suspicion of DUI, so they don't have to smell alcohol or anything like that. There are a couple other conditions that sometimes are imposed on a first-time DUI. One is the IID, or interlock ignition device. This is where a device is placed on the ignition of a car, and you can't drive a car unless it has this device, and it requires you to give a breath sample before the car will start. Another condition of probation is something called public work service. This is imposed in an aggravated case, and what it is through the probation department, you're assigned sort of work duties. The most common one is picking up trash on the highway. If you've ever been driving down the highway and you saw a bunch of folks on the side of the highway in orange jumpsuits picking up trash, they were participating in public work service. In San Diego, you can get that as a penalty depending on how aggravating the case could be. One important thing to remember is that these, I consider, short-term punishments, these conditions of probation. The real punishment of a DUI is the long-term punishment of having a criminal record. So from now on, if you're convicted of a DUI, it's on your record. When you go apply for a job or a professional license, it can come up and it could prevent you from advancing some life event in the future. And that is really the punishment of a DUI, in my opinion. I actually help people fight DUIs, and my job is to help you avoid these punishments, obviously.